major corporations don't want to come to Houston if every other month or so we're getting these storms that knock out power for multiple days.
A serious concern raised by Councilmember Edward Pollard, and just one negative ramification of our community's lack of resilience. Turns out there's evidence that heavy weather fatigue is driving away a significant number of people who live here now. Polling just last year from UH's Hobby Center found 57% of Houstonians surveyed have reconsidered relocating, or just considered it, not reconsidered it, from the area, and half of those folks conceded severe weather was a major factor behind the inclination to move. Panel, those numbers were gathered before the destructive derecho and the misery inflicted by Hurricane Beryl. Bill, thoughts?
Well, if 57% of Houstonians are thinking about moving out, I can promise you 100% of people that are thinking about moving here are thinking about this. Look, Houston has a number of problems, the weather being one. You know, crime, our streets, you know, water problems. You go down the list. You know, the city of Houston's population has been the same for the last 7 years. And I constantly hear people talk about how Houston's growing. Well, the region's growing. The city of Houston has not grown in 7 years, folks. For Harris County, for the last decade, 200,000 more people have moved out of Harris County to someplace in the United States than have moved into Harris County. All of our population growth in Harris County has come from international migration, not domestic migration. We've got a problem when 200,000 people net have decided to move out of the county and go to some places. Now, many of them are going to Fort Bend County and Montgomery County and other places, but nonetheless, they are finding the value proposition for living here not to be appealing.
You're all my friends, and I know you all choose to live here and you love this community. But Paul, you just heard what Bill had to say. You can live somewhere else, all of you, but you choose to stay here.
Yeah, so we were on vacation. We're hanging out with friends who are Houstonians who had moved somewhere else and had been thinking about coming back. Well, after what's happened in the last couple of months, they said, I just can't imagine coming back, because not just the weather, it was the reaction to the weather. What was being broadcast on the news looked like chaos, looked like ineptitude, looked like corruption. And, you know, you think back to the 1969 fire on the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland. That's us now. Like, we're that, you know, and it lasted for all like 5 minutes, I think. We're becoming known for disasters and the inability to deal with them, and I think that's a major brand problem.
As someone who worked in Cleveland for 3 years, 97 to 2000, and loved the city, they were still recovering from the burning Cuyahoga. Charles, by default, we always go to you for the younger generation. Is the weather a factor in moving here?
I think so. I think so, or at least the costs that are associated with it. So the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association met last week to talk about this. They've received 16,000 insurance claims so far. They're expecting it to hit about 20,000. They're expecting a $200 million worth of payout, which is half of their catastrophic fund. So and we're not even done with hurricane season yet. And they're saying that they're also going to push for a 2025 rate, 10% rate increase on windstorm insurance rates for commercial and residential property owners. So it's, I mean, who can afford that? And then you still have to then on the back end deal with everything that happens. So yeah, it's tough. And side note, Senator Betancourt was excluded from my previous comments. I wasn't talking about him. Just
okay. Holly, you lived in Georgetown, I think, or in that area.
Right.
I covered the Gerald tornado. I mean, pick your poison.
Yes, there's, you know, natural disasters, right? But, you know, to everyone's point, there is a concern, and I'm glad Charles brought this up. This is something that, you know, I've been talking to a friend about, the raising cost of the living because of these storms, you know, higher insurance. We also have higher taxes here, and that's creeping up on people. So is it going to be cost prohibitive to live in a city that is still grappling with a crime problem? And, you know, I don't live in the city. I'm in Harris County, but it's a little frustrating.